Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, sitting down to talk about Starfield, where we have some very juicy news. We got a little bit of a fallout here from the FTC court case where more emails have popped up and they're mighty tantalizing, talking about Starfield and exclusivity, and is Bethesda really against that internally despite what's been said to us as consumers? We're going to get into that, as well as concerns about Starfield's physical copy, AMD being Starfield's official partner, as well as some other little tidbits here and there that I think are really interesting, like games delaying to get out of the way of Starfield. It's all jammed into today's Starfield video, so if you're new here and you're into Starfield news, conversation, speculation, anything this game, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. But before we go any further, a quick word from today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by Everfit Edge. Ladies and gentlemen, health is wealth. You want to play those great games, got to take care of your body. So let me tell you about this fantastic protein powder. In 2022, I experimented with a plant-based diet, tried a lot of different protein powders. This I've settled on is the best I've personally had. It's super clean. It's been tested for heavy metals. And ladies and gentlemen, what kind of protein are you taking in? Clean organic fava bean, organic pumpkin seed, organic pea protein. It is some of the best you'll find on the market. Now, I have a little commission code. If you want to support your boy, try something else out in the protein market, there will be a link down below. Go ahead, check it out, put in the code Matty15, 15% off. And with that, shout out to Everfit Edge for sponsoring today's video. With that, I want to begin with some tea being spilled. I've always said on Defining Duke and here on the channel, I do not care what the verdict ends up being for this Microsoft FTC court case. I say that because right now, the data, the tea that is being spilled out of the case is far more fascinating for me. We very rarely get a real true peek behind the curtains at how this industry functions, and I think it's why so many people are very uninformed on how video games are made, how the industry works, because all this stuff is kept behind closed doors. It's such a secretive industry. So to get any looks at emails between Microsoft execs is really, really cool. And we got this one here from Pete Hines about exclusivity with Bethesda games versus Activision Blizzard games. Some are talking and saying, oh, Bethesda's pissed that their games are exclusives. And others are saying, well, maybe Pete is just trying to get some clarification here and he's frustrated at the lack of that. So which is it? I have some thoughts. Let's read the email first. In a message sent to Jamie Letter, Todd Howard, and Todd Vaughn, Pete is commenting on the Xbox blog post where he writes the following. I'm confused. Is the below not the opposite of what we were just asked, and he puts in parentheses here, a little passive aggressive, told to do with our own titles? What's the difference? Emphasis in bold is mine from the blog post yesterday. And here's what Microsoft wrote. First, some commentators have asked whether we will continue to make popular content like Activision Blizzard's Call of Duty available on competing platforms like Sony's PlayStation. The obvious concern is that Microsoft would make this title available exclusively on the Xbox console, undermining opportunities for PlayStation users. To be clear, Microsoft will continue to make Call of Duty and other popular Activision Blizzard titles available on PlayStation throughout the term of any existing agreement with Activision. And then this is where Pete Hines' bold steps in. And we have committed to Sony that we will continue to make them available on PlayStation beyond the existing agreement and into the future so that Sony fans can continue to enjoy the games they love. We are also interested in taking similar steps to support Nintendo's successful platform. We believe this is the right thing for the industry, for gamers, and for our business. Then Pete continues. Did anyone at Xbox think about giving us a heads up on this? Todd's going to DICE in a couple of weeks. You don't think a journal might find him and press him on why the below is okay for Call of Duty or any Activision Blizzard games, but not the Elder Scrolls 6 or Starfield, or any/every future interview he does? Okay, so clearly a little perturbed here. I think it makes sense. Does this mean that Bethesda's upset their games have to be exclusive? I actually don't think so. The way I'm reading this is Pete Hines is trying to protect his man. Todd Howard is the guy everyone in this industry wants to interview. He's always got something insightful to say, and the reality is when he speaks, people listen. Viewership goes up, listeners go up, clicks go up. Todd Howard just has that magic, and Pete understands that. So you don't want to have the guy who's always being in demand to be interviewed getting pressed for questions in one-offs in social environments about why Elder Scrolls or Starfield has to be exclusive, but things like Call of Duty and Activision Blizzard games cannot be exclusive. And so I think it's fair that Pete sees this and says, hey, this was never told to us, because probably Bethesda and Xbox's understanding was, as Phil had publicly said, this is a deal about getting exclusive games for the platforms where Game Pass exists. Okay, got it, is what Bethesda's thinking. So when they see Activision gets brought in, naturally they're gonna go, oh, right, exclusive buddy, come on, let's go. Wait, you're not? Okay, why them and not us? Wait, okay, so I don't think it communicates to me that they're upset that they're exclusive, because I think the reality is for Bethesda as a business, for them to reach the level they were once at, they need to slim their focus a bit. I think of games like Starfield that I just can't imagine would be as promising, if you will, if the game was coming out also on PlayStation, where they had to split the focus with multiple SKUs. I know some people will say, well, what about Redfall, Matty? That was exclusive, and look how that turned out. To me, that goes to creative. That goes straight to the heart of creative, which was a separate problem, because I think of games like Wolfenstein Youngblood, creative issue, but also that's where we'll call it the mandate of live service stepped in and hurt those games. But I don't think there were creative issues with Wolfenstein 2, creative issues with The Evil Within 2, creative issues with Prey. These are just games that were made for multiple platforms. A lot of time was invested in them, and the risk was higher, and it didn't pay off. So I think Bethesda, by a business, naturally needed to slim, and I think they are going to welcome that to start to earn some of the reputation back. But I think this is just Pete trying to protect his guy. And yeah, this is Xbox failing on that communication front, which would match up with what we saw happened with Redfall. We understood after Redfall that there just wasn't enough talking between Xbox and Bethesda. And now with the reception of Redfall and Phil's very transparent interview, it's clear this was a problem for a while, that Xbox would put out a blog post like this, trying to just win over regulators before they had to go to court and have the FTC try to file for an injunction and so on and so forth. Before all that, there were still communication woes. That's how I am personally interpreting it, so that they can try to protect their guys, their gals, who may have questions thrown their way, and they need to be equipped to answer them and dance around them effectively. So with that, we move into our next subject here. AMD, Starfield's official partner. If you look at the like to dislike ratio on the YouTube video announcement, people aren't pleased. So I had to do some deep diving here to really get a proper understanding of this. I am not afraid to admit that when it comes to PC and technology in general, most times I am not well educated on it, because I am very much simple in my approach. Disc, console, yay, picture on screen. I'm sorry to say, I know that I should probably be better with that. So that's why for videos like this, I bone up, I do my research, because my work demands it. So AMD has what's called FSR, Fidelity FX Super Resolution. Meanwhile, NVIDIA has their own version of this pretty much, called NVIDIA's DLSS, which is a deep learning super sampling option. Now, DLSS 3 includes a feature called frame generation that will compare two native frames and then draw frames using that data. Well, that's like speaking another language to me, and I imagine many others out there. To put it simply, this adds frames that grants performance boost for games without calling on the system's processing. Actually, there was a modder who implemented this very technology into Fallout 4 of all games, and you can see the performance gain for yourself. You also have this same option available for Skyrim, which people use with naturally the amount of mods they pack into their games. You're going to want to have as many frames as you can get. What this means though, and why people are upset that AMD is having this official partnership with Starfield, is that it probably means that DLSS will not be there at launch. To put it in console terms for people like me who really are focused on that space, think of what AMD is doing here like PlayStation exclusivity. In fact, WCCF Tech had amassed a great list from this year of all the games that are coming out that are sponsored through what we'll call this upscaler competition. And you're gonna see that 13 sponsored AMD titles this year only received in 3 instances DLSS support. Typically, what we're seeing is that games that become an official AMD partner do not get DLSS support. This is problematic because then I watched a video from Hardware Unboxed, and it's a 30+ minute video that's comparing some of the latest games that support these upscalers, and even to an untrained eye like myself, it can definitely be worse in the case of FSR. Specifically, Forspoken looked awful with a ton of flickering, and many other games that were shown off had flickering like Need for Speed Unbound, but this is where I feel like the YouTube boys and gals get a little ahead of themselves. I know this is gonna really be me kind of inviting ignorance is bliss into the conversation, and in a way that's true. If I'm playing Need for Speed and I'm going 100 miles per hour and the bridge above me is flickering slightly, unless I slow it down and blow up the image like this video does and analyze it on a technical level, DLSS is absolutely better, it seems to be. There was a time last year, from what I read and what I researched and what I watched, that these two were a bit more even. But now DLSS is starting to take it a bit forward. But I say all that there are times where a game's running so fast that you're not going to catch some of the artifacts, some of the flickering, and so on and so forth, issues that are common with FSR. DLSS isn't perfect. There was an example that they showed with Spider-Man in this same video where some of the sharpening was very heavy and the image looked a little bit softer for DLSS. However, Spider-Man ended up looking much better with DLSS when the action was going on. So it seems like FSR has some issues with this type of stuff. Now, the reason why I think Bethesda went and did this, according to my knowledge, is because what you have here with FSR can be used with any single graphics card out there because it's software based. This means that this can help on some level perhaps improve the performance of Starfield over on consoles. What we want there at the bare minimum is a nice steady 30. And there were moments in the direct that did not show a nice steady 30. So my hopes are that this partnership can at least brew a strong console version. And I say all of that because a modder is already going to be all over Starfield getting DLSS support, even if it's in an unofficial way. This comes from an article by Windows Central Gaming, where it's titled, Bethesda may not add DLSS 3 to Starfield, but this modder will. A popular modder known for adding upscaling features to games that don't support them officially has promised to bring DLSS 3 and DLSS 2 to Starfield if Bethesda does not. The aforementioned modder is named Pure Dark, and they've brought DLSS 3, DLSS 2, FSR 2, and or Intel's XE super sampling, aka XESS, to several PC games including Skyrim, Fallout 4, Elden Ring, Jedi Survivor, and The Last of Us Part 1. You can find some of Pure Dark's mods on their Nexus page, though many of them are currently only available to subscribers on their Patreon. So hey, go get your bag. That's some smart business right there. You're making a very valuable product there that people undoubtedly will happily pay for. Because again, the problem goes back to, if I were to put this into console terms, think of what's going on with Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? AMD is making what PC gamers are viewing as an inferior product and then buying exclusivity for certain games out there and saying, okay, you can only use our upscaler technology there. The reason you can trust modders to get in there is not only has it been done multiple times in the past, but it's been said by developers that these two do not differ in a massive way in the terms of implementation, where it could just be a simple flip of the switch for one game to activate DLSS support, which is kind of crazy to think about. But the reality is that NVIDIA has the superior product. They're much more open in saying, hey, if we have support for this game, you know, AMD can come in and support it as well. But AMD is using their money to buy out certain games as official partners, and PC fans are getting fed up. And especially with Starfield, the concern is ramping up because I think the biggest concern for the game overall is beyond the planets and the content within them. How will it run? It's such a massive, ambitious game. How will it run? And when it has the inferior upscaler product there, that is something that people are a bit worried about because now they can't find a way on an official level to buy themselves a few extra frames. So we'll see, but now we move into Jim Ryan during the FTC court case, where I thought his answer here was interesting. He says, according to this article from IGN, PlayStation boss Jim Ryan admits Starfield Xbox exclusivity is not anti-competitive. His exact quote is this: "I don't like it, but I have fundamentally no quarrel with it," Ryan replied. When asked how he felt about Starfield skipping PlayStation 5 and being exclusive to Xbox Series X and S on console, he said, "I don't like it, but I don't view it as anti-competitive." Could he have had any other answer here? I saw a lot of Xbox fans like running around celebrating this as a win. And yeah, we're seeing both sides here, PlayStation and Xbox, play the victim. But I mean, Jim would be lying till he's blue in the face if he tried to call this anti-competitive, because the immediate follow-up would be, what about, I just brought up Final Fantasy VII Remake earlier. What about that? I'm going to throw out Forspoken there as another example, even though that's a game that y'all can have. I played it to completion. Y'all can have that one. But point being is there's a lot of exclusivity for PlayStation. That's their business model, right? And I've always supported that because I've said for Xbox, You want to have people surround your box, you got to create an identity. How you do that? You buy stuff and you put up the walls and say, if you want that experience, you come here, and you got to make the worthwhile products. That's all there is to it. So I don't think PlayStation is wrong for doing that. I think that's the way business will always go in this industry, just like any streaming service, any product at all. However, if Jim Ryan were to sit here and try to tell us, nah, that is anti-competitive, oh my God, the hypocrisy here. That would be horrendous for their argument trying to get this deal blocked, because it would, again, with the politics of the situation, show their ass a little too much here. So I just thought this comment was interesting, but let's leapfrog into our final topic of the video, Starfield's physical copy. I just wanted to do a little bit of cleanup work here, because when it comes to Starfield and its physical edition, some people have concerns. Even after one of the almost controversies happened, they have some concerns about what will come shortly thereafter. So the Bethesda support account had originally said here that there would not be discs for Starfield in the physical copy of the game, that it would in fact come with a code for the game, and that would be it. We have seen this happen before. Starfield looks to be a 130-ish gigabyte game according to a Microsoft store listing, so it's going to be absolutely massive. Now, since then, I reached out to Bethesda. They sent me this post here where they did update on their official website. Starfield will include a game disc with the standard version. Now, it's already been confirmed since the pre-orders went live. Unfortunately, and I hate when games do this, the collector's edition won't. I know they're trying to trim costs. I know the business reality of it, but to me, the idea that I gotta buy the collector's edition and then to get the physical game to put in the steelbook, I gotta buy the game again for $70. What? Man, I get it, but it is so frustrating to have a collector's edition without the game to collect. I know the collector's part for a lot of people is about the goodies, but to me, it's also collecting the game, the highest valued version of the game. So that one stings a little bit. However, a lot of websites leapt on this information saying, oh, here we go, you know, Starfield's not gonna have a disc. Very few sites cleaned up afterwards. I held my tongue on this news at first because the same thing happened with Redfall. It was literally deja vu. Bethesda support came in. Yeah, it's just gonna be the game codes. I opened my mouth right away over on Twitter. I was like, this would be extremely disappointing. And then guess what? You look like a fool because right thereafter, Bethesda says, you know what? There's actually gonna be a disc. Now, here is where the kind of conversation carries to the next phase. Okay, we have the disc. I'm not trying to find a new problem here, but I think it's fair to bring up what happened with Halo Infinite, Xbox's progression into the digital-only future, and how I could see a situation where Starfield's disc is just a coaster. I mean, as much as Xbox really, I'd say, props up this vision of we care about your library back then and now with backwards compatibility support, although they've stopped that, with FPS boost, although they've stopped that, Xbox has the worst DRM in the industry. It absolutely does. PlayStation has them beat on that. Even without the backwards compatibility, which I think inevitably they're gonna do, Xbox is being beat in that department. And I've always said they gotta do better with that stuff. I know we're moving to this highly interconnected world, but people wanna be able to play their games offline. It's just that simple. And there's still very few products, even ones that we love, that are proving to us that this always online future is worth it. I think of something like Diablo 4. The servers are still a problem. And this to me was like a game of the year candidate, but I keep getting booted. I keep lagging around. I'm just not convinced that this had to be an always online game because it's coming at the sacrifice of what we're here for, which is the good experience. I say all of that because Starfield could be like Halo Infinite, where half the game is on the disc, and what effectively it becomes is a coaster, because otherwise you're gonna have to download the game anyway, just like you did with Halo Infinite. Now, that has just been the one-off example, but it is still very, very much an example worth considering with the way Xbox is trending. Starfield is a game that's massive and ambitious, and we look at something like what's going on with Alan Wake 2, where they said to make a better game, they wanna go the digital-only route, which is crazy to me. But again, I think it's coming down to cutting costs. When you have to produce the box, the disc, potential manuals, slips, it all adds up. This is all cost cutting because games are getting more expensive to make. So we're starting to see digital only AAA games like Alan Wake, which is crazy. And so we're getting there where, yes, even when Starfield has to clarify, yeah, don't worry, it's gonna have a disc. Will the full game be on that disc? We will see. I'm personally a little bit nervous about that, but again, we'll see. It's just a part of the community that's very concerned about that. Time will tell. But ladies and gentlemen, that's all your Starfield news for today. As I said, a jam-packed video. So let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about from the top to the bottom. I'm looking forward to seeing how you're feeling about things from the AMD partnership all the way to Pete Hines' email and so on and so forth. So feel free to dive in wherever you please. And with that, take great care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.